Like to call the Board of Works meeting to order. First we'd have roll call.
Cam Collier.
Here.
Bill Carbach.
Here.
Tim Meyer.
Here. You were all emailed a copy of the minutes from our April 5th meeting. We have a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay, first thing on our agenda, AECom. Ann, and if you want to pull a third chair up here, you could all just sit up here. So
Handout before I get started.
something a little different, Tiffany. Since the old City Hall days, we now record all of our council meetings. So if you could sit there, and that way it would all be picked up on the record. I did. I turned it on. Tap it and see if it's live.
Yeah.
With Nate's departure, we felt it necessary to look somewhere for a Nate. And I don't mean a permanent Nate, but a short-term Nate to get us through this next 6 months or so. And AECom was basically the engineering firm that designed this sewer project, and then we also had them in mind for our post-construction testing model. So Ann and Nate and I, when we'd met, we just kind of thought they were a no-brainer for to approach them about being the engineer to get us through this project. So with that, we met with them on, when was that? Last Friday?
Yeah, I think last Thursday.
Friday. And had a good discussion, and we invited them to be here tonight. And there we go. What have I forgotten, Ann?
Nothing.
Okay. This is, introduce yourselves.
Yeah,
I think everyone has met both of you before. I'm not sure if they met Bill before.
No.
I'm
Okay.
Tiffany Mag with AECom. I'm the project manager and have been on a lot of your guys' long-term control plan work. And this is Bill Porteous. He also works in our Columbus, Ohio office. He does a lot of the hydraulic modeling and has served as a project engineer on basically all the projects that we've worked on. I think you haven't seen Bill so much because he's kind of been behind the scenes doing the work. We happened to be up in Defiance this morning, so it made sense for us to come over and for Bill to kind of get to meet you guys as well. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and to be talking about doing some program management services. We are more than thrilled to get the opportunity. When we met last week with Nate and Ann and the mayor as well, we did talk about doing a program management type of service through the duration of this long-term control plan. What we thought made the most sense at that meeting was to go forward with maybe a year-by-year type of contract. That way if you guys do get a new city engineer on board or whatever the case may be, you're not locked into a long-term type of contract with us. So what I gave you there in front of you would be looking at doing the program management services for the construction administration of your Phase 3 release sewer and interceptor sewer. We feel very confident that we can do a good job of working between Clark Dietz, of course working with Ann and with all of you at the city, and then kind of being the go-between with the contractor as well. We have a lot of experience doing that type of work. And we have a guy, Bill Flike, who works in our Indianapolis office, who is pretty available to help out, and I think would be, kind of coordinating with Ann on that on a very regular basis. So what we've outlined here on the first page of the handout would be the scope items that would be included in the construction administration work, basically being the Nate on the project. So we'd be looking to, monitor the progress, the schedules, the permits, the submittals, basically be reviewing all the bids and the proposals that are submitted at the end of the bidding duration. Of course, we'll be working with Clark Dietz on that and recommending the apparent low bidder and who should be awarded the contract. We'll also be conducting the progress meetings. I think that was going to be Nate's, one of the tasks that Nate was going to perform was actually conducting the meeting. So we would go ahead and hold those, most likely bi-monthly meetings, depending on the status of the work. If there's a lot going on, then it makes sense to do them every month. So we would prepare the agendas, the minutes, and all of those kind of things, and continue to update you all on the progress of the work and whether there's any change orders and some of those type of things. We'd also be in between the contractor and Clark Dietz with the submittals and shop drawings. but Clark Dietz is on board to actually review those shop drawings and give them an approval or in non-conformance. Also the permits, I think Nate was planning on helping get a lot of those permits secured. I know that Bill Flake has coordinated with Nate on those and knows exactly what needs to happen, so I think we're pretty comfortable with that as well. And then change orders would be kind of the last task in that CA item, where we would look at any change orders that the contractor feels are necessary. We would look at whether or not they are warranted, and if so, we would be reviewing the costs and making sure that they're within reason.
I think Nate already talked to you about one, didn't he, when we were at it?
Yeah, he did, yeah. So we do have some of Nate's thoughts on potential change orders and how to save some money. And I'm assuming from talking to Nate and also to you, Ann, that Nate is available to continue to bounce ideas off of. So if there are other things, you know, I'm sure he's got ideas that he'll throw out to us. So the approximate fee that we came up with for that CA piece was $75,000. We thought that it made the most sense to do that as a time and materials contract instead of a lump sum. That way, you know, maybe we don't spend the full $75,000 depending on how much work there really is to do. It's kind of an unknown at this point, you know, how many hours are we really going to need to charge, but we feel like the $75,000 could be like a not to exceed type of number. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about that kind of first phase of the program management work.
One question I have, Tiffany, the Rule 5 permit, where you talk about outstanding permits, what is that? What does that entail?
That's a good question. That was something that Bill Flake put on there. Bill had coordinated with Nate on that. Do you know, Ann, what's outstanding on the NPDS Rule 5 permit? No, I think we could ask Bill Flake when we get back in the office. He would know what exactly is outstanding on that.
Are there any permits needed for the actual construction work along the river as the interceptor?
Isn't there environmental? There's something about trees and owl or bats.
Nate said something about, that's why I was asking.
I thought those were already secured. I thought
No,
they're not secured.
I think the contractor was saying.
We can double check on that.
Yeah, I think Clark Dietz is...
Okay, I would just make sure that we have the
Sure.
necessary permits.
Yeah, absolutely. We can look at that.
Last question that I have is, when we met with some of the property owners, business owners in particular over here on First Street, we talked about making sure that the construction work occurred during periods of the summer that didn't that interfered as little as possible with their normal business operations. I think it was between like July 4th and Labor Day or something like that.
No, I think it was June something, Mother's Day to 4th of July or something like that, I think, wasn't it?
Well, we need to check with them, but I would think it was
We have some notes on that.
midsummer.
Okay.
Midsummer is
Making
when.
sure that is
And then the other thing was, when we talked to the funeral home down at Wicks, apparently this was done in the past when they had construction in that area, but if there was a funeral where people were being dismissed to go to a church or cemetery, that the construction workers would kind of just stop for a few minutes until the family left. So I don't know if that's something that you would oversee,
Yeah,
making
we
sure
would.
is done, or...
Yeah, we would relay that message to the contractor and
Okay.
make sure that they're aware. And also, you guys will have an inspector on site that I believe you're executing their contract tonight. They would also be in charge of, you know, kind of keeping in the loop with us and making
Okay.
sure that the contractor adheres to those
All right.
requirements. Okay, you want to flip to the next page? So that kind of covers the construction administration services. But then beyond that, if we were to continue with additional program management services, these are the things that would be, you know, kind of out there to do probably in 2017 and beyond. The first is the post-construction flow monitoring, as well as recommendations for the final phase 4 work. That was kind of the next project that Nate had set aside. I think he had his own pot of money for that. So we didn't really want to wrap it into this as well, you know, depending on how you guys had your budgets all set out. But we would actually at that time identify, you know, probably 20 or more flow meters that need to go out into the system, and then we'll recalibrate the model and look at exactly what needs to happen for phase 4. So I think we have a very good handle on, you know, where those flow meters are going to need to go based on conversations with Ian and also with Nate. And then, you know, we'll need to kind of look at what kind of data you guys are capturing after you complete this Phase 3 project to be able to size your Phase 4 alternative. So I think that, we'll definitely have a very good handle on what needs to happen at that point. Also, we'll assist with the smoke testing and the televising. We'll help, determine where you guys want to do that work, how you want to implement the fixes, and we'll basically be just coordinating with Ann on that on a constant basis. Also, if you do want to develop any of the specific ordinances and some modifications with some of the downspouts and the sump pumps, we can certainly help with that. We realize that there's always, some political, administrative type issues with actually doing that, but, we can certainly help out in any way that you guys would see fit.
Is the sump pump ordinance becoming a more standard ordinance among municipalities, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, we do have these conversations with pretty much every city that has a combined sewer system, yes. We had the same conversation with Defiance this morning, is where do we put the flow? That's the main question that everyone has, so.
Do you also have a lot of reservations about it as well when you talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy to say, well, you should just do this, because it doesn't work for every community. You need to know what, you feel is in the best interest of your residents. And in the case of like a Defiance, they're probably going to convey the flow and treat it, because they don't feel that it's right to tell residents you have to disconnect when they don't have anywhere to put it. So that's kind of what their approach is, but everyone's is different. So, I mean, we could certainly help you guys navigate through that as well. And then we have any potential recommendations on maintenance or upgrade options when we start looking at what some of those results are from the smoke testing and the CCTV. We can certainly help you kind of, decide where you want to spend some of your money if you do need to do some rehab. And then also we can assist with scope and contract development for any rehab and or CIPP lining or anything that needs to happen with some of those sewers after we look at the results of the smoke testing and the televising. So those would all probably be in like a next year's program management contract if that's the way that you guys would like to see it unfold.
So the not to exceed $75,000, that is to get us through Phase 3 of this project in its entirety, and that's based on $120 plus reimbursable expenses
Correct.
per
Yes.
hour.
Correct, yes.
And
So
then,
that's rough. Obviously, everyone has a different rate, and we would charge you each person's rate as it fits. So obviously, if we have an entry-level engineer, we're going to just charge you whatever that rate is, which is below 120. But like Bill Flake, I think his rate is closer to the 120. So depending on who's working on the project, it won't just be a flat 120 per hour. It'll be at each person's rate. I was just trying to give you kind of a rough idea of what, Bill's going to be working on the project the majority of the time. That's probably roughly what you're going to see.
Were you going to be involved prior to Nate's leaving? I mean,
With Phase 3?
yeah, I thought you were going to.
No, I think Nate's plan was for us to continue to do the post-construction flow metering, the redoing the model, and coming up with a plan for Phase 4, and then he did mention that he would like us to design the Phase 4. But his vision was to carve out that Phase 3 just plan and profile sheets. It's pretty cut and dry, pretty straightforward engineering. He wanted to have more of a local firm do that type of work because it was a little bit more straightforward and, something that they could have local surveyors get involved and kind of keep the work, more in the area. So we weren't involved or planning to be involved at all during Phase 3.
Basically, the first page of your submission here are things that you're going to do now instead of Nate.
Mm-hmm.
Nate was going to do all of this work himself. Is that pretty much correct? And so you're stepping in and becoming Nate.
Correct,
in that sense.
Right.
And that would begin next Tuesday with the opening of the bids.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
not if you consider benefits.
True.
Well, it's probably right on par.
Yeah,
We're starting late. I mean, it was 4 months into it. So it's not to say, we haven't even had that discussion about replacing Nate.
Yeah, we will.
Well, I know. I mean, and even if it was this, hey, we're with them until such a time, and if that doesn't happen until next year, and new Nate can step in to this,
Right.
but the fact of the matter is that we have to do something.
We have to do for this project, by all means.
And we're certainly happy to just help you guys out until you get a new Nate. You don't have to sign us on for a full year, whatever the case may be. You know, if you get a new Nate and we need to get that person up to speed and let them take over, you can do that as well.
We'll never replace Nate. Okay, so this is, okay, yeah, almost like a not to exceed 120 plus if reimbursable, not to exceed 75,000.
Well, okay, Tiffany and I talked
Yeah,
about
'cause this
the
is- you can check, but I'm pretty sure
75,000.
this gets paid to the
If
supervisor.
you have the contract worded
Yeah.
not to exceed, and something happens through this whole summer that it does exceed, then there'll have to be another contract drawn up. And I think it would be more flexible to have the 75,000 as an estimate, but not put not to exceed on it. You know, this is kind of hard to really estimate, and
But we know what Nate
who's
cost
going to
us.
work on it, and...
That's what,
Pardon?
we know what Nate cost us though. That's what we're,
Yeah,
we understand what, like, this could be a lot more expensive than just having a new Nate. I guess
Well,
that's the
could be,
point.
yeah. Oh, I'm not sure what you're saying.
Well, we were just, kind of saying, what does Nate cost us, right?
Oh,
What,
yeah.
I mean, based on his salary and what his benefits were,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, it's obviously much cheaper to hire a new Nate. That's always the case
Yeah.
with stuff like this.
which is why we had a
Especially-
new Nate, or a original Nate. to
Yeah.
begin with.
Right.
but I think we're very comfortable with.
Oh, yeah.
with-
Oh, yeah.
With your firm, and I think your knowledge of what's going on is the true benefit that you can actually step in and take us through this, so.
Sure, and like I said, if you want us to just do it until you find a new Nate, that's fine as well. You know, we're certainly flexible
Yeah,
and we
I-
can do
I
whatever.
just don't want us to get so comfortable with them that we don't pursue a new Nate because,
Understand.
Because the new
Right.
Nate is much cheaper.
Exactly,
Totally
where
agree.
we know what we need, and we,
Well, and not only that, but Nate was involved in a lot of other
Right,
projects
right.
unrelated to the
Yeah.
sewer
Yeah,
project.
over and above this.
stormwater.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is
Nate
only
was,
a quarter.
this was a
of the
Nate.
work. Yeah,
This building was,
right.
All right, so, maybe this isn't an official contract, or we need to, what are we looking at?
We have not put together an official contract. I wanted to talk to you all, and especially you, Tim. Are you going to be reviewing the contract?
Right.
We typically have used the EJCDC documents with Nate. We would go ahead and use the same one.
Yeah.
I can put that together. If
Yeah.
I wanted to know whether you wanted it to be, you know, time and materials not to exceed, or how you guys wanted that to look, and I can do that in the next few days.
But this needs to be done.
before Tuesday.
We can still come on Tuesday. That's not a big deal.
So Tiffany needs some direction on how to structure the contract.
Well, if you do the hourly rate plus the not to exceed 75, is that basically just saying, okay, once you get to 75,
Once we would get to 75,000, that would mean we would have to do all of these things. So if we weren't doing all of these things, we'd have to keep working basically for free.
Right,
to Get all
gotcha.
these things done. But if you want us to do any of these things on the second page in excess of the 75 grand, we would need to do a change order
Right.
or whatever the case would be
Right.
at that time.
right?
You're committing, based on the concept of time and materials, you're saying that you can perform all of these functions, services, and it's not going to cost more than $75,000.
Right. It's most likely going to be less, you know, as long as nothing unforeseen comes up. You know, we don't know how many change orders there will be, things like that.
Yep.
Well, I'd say that it makes sense to proceed with drafting the contract to not to exceed 75,000 for Phase 3 only,
Okay.
and then we can deal with Phase 4 and beyond after that,
Okay.
if we don't have a new name.
Sounds good.
And then, I guess here's my question. We wouldn't be voting on this for 2 weeks. Can't really authorize,
The contract, until we have the
Contract.
contract. Well, they said they're willing to,
Well, you could authorize it subject to my review and approval and authorize Ken to sign it.